But if you have somebody like this guy that can say, hey, this is why we're doing this, and this is where Landry can't do that. Landry, the history buff, and he's articulate. Landry can be articulate, but just he's too abrasive, very much abrasive. And then once you use that, once people get offended, like not necessarily offended, but once people get offended, they're not going to listen to you.
Nine, 8, 7, 6, 5. The breaks aren't just for you too. It's for me too, for my throat. I get laryngitis about 3 times a year. I usually have, like you did, I have to turn this up because I'm yet to learn how to talk, like whisper or talk low. If I don't have a microphone, I'd already be done for me. I wouldn't even be talking right now. I'd be like hoarse. So the breaks are kind of give my voice a break. So time delay tactics. I talked about that a little bit this morning. That's one of my top, easily in my top 10 objectives when I go somewhere my first time is to send you back to your fire department understanding that promotional tactics don't work on a fire ground. And that time delay tactics is more of a reality for 90% of the fire service based on staffing. That when you pull up in the first 5, 10, a lot of places 15 minutes, you can't deploy John Norman's fire tactics in your department. Chief Norman's a friend of mine, him and I taught the 40-hour ODP this last year, so, he's awesome. Some of you listened to Chief John Norman before, right? Unbelievable, awesome gentleman. Probably one of the most experienced and humble firefighters you'll ever meet. Literally, he's on my shelf of top 5, baddest dudes out there in the fire service. But you can't do Chief John Norman's tactics, meaning like what he had when he was working in New York City with 5 and 6 person engine, 5 or 6 truck companies. So what you have to do is you still have to study the John Norman Fire Officer Handbook. You have to understand that's the #1 book for fireground operations. You have to understand the tactics. You have to understand how to deploy those tactics under a proper strategy. But most of us have to remember time delay tactics. And some of those tactics are going to have to be delayed. I would say, the big one that's going to be delayed a lot of times is vertical ventilation, whether it be a commercial flat roof or a residential peaked roof. It's not that we don't need it. Searching of attached exposures. A lot of times you're going to have to dual task people with accountability officer jobs and sector jobs. And it comes back to what I really hit this morning. I'm going to today make sure you leave here thinking that if you go to a fire tonight, probably the most important thing you do, with few exceptions, which would be an immediate rescue of a 100% known victim, a kid's in that bedroom, is stretching the first line. First line goes, the fire goes. And that's the one tactic that we do not want to delay. And time delay tactics comes from the fact that engine company operations and getting water on the fire in that first line is so critical that we will delay those other tactics. And we do have to get firefighters to understand that water application does save lives, civilian and firefighters. And I opened up the first hour with that. And you have to understand, when you have a significant working fire, that whole deal that water maintains and creates survivable space is critical. I say it based on being at fires where we made significant cracks. Being at fires where we did a good job getting lines stretched, getting water on the fire, and then a firefighter got disoriented, or there was a collapse. One was a good a trailer fire. Awesome job getting it knocked down. Firefighter falls through the floor and is significantly pinned where he fell to the rotten floor, dead center. They had basically boxed in underneath the trailer, not vinyl, brick. Have you ever seen that with a plywood in? So now we got to do a little bit of breaching and getting up underneath there. Been a long time. So now, not a real big deal. It's residual smoke. Fire's been extinguished, and they're calmed down. Get somebody to breach before to get underneath to help get out. But in that exact situation would have been, while the fire was still burning, could it have been a different outcome? Guaranteed. So I'm not even talking about an apartment. I'm talking about a mobile home fire, a trailer fire, in relation to what we're doing. Today's fires in a 4-person engine company. If you ride with less than 4, you ride with 3 on an engine company, you ride with 2, you ride as the chief driver of the first 2 rig, you're just you. And you pull up on a private dwelling fire that you know that technically we should be doing an interior attack, then your head needs to start before. And I talked about that before lunch. Officer nozzle, officer, door person, pump operator. The hardest people to understand and buy into today's fires in a 4-person engine company is the one that's been going to fires with less than 4 and nothing's happened and they've been extinguished in those fires. What does that create? The fact that they've gone to fires with less than 4 and they were able to extinguish those fires with no bad outcome. What does that create? False sense of security, complacency. And that's the one thing I want to send you out of here, because most of you ride with 3 or less. And so when you pull up on a working fire, you're going to take a nozzle, and you're going to use nozzle reach, where you want the nozzle to break the threshold, you want to go to a kitchen, a laundry, a bedroom, a second floor. You need to be starting at 4 and adding from there. You start at 4 and add from there. So, raise your hand again if you ride with 3 or less on an engine company. Raise your hand high, raise your hand. So, right now, I want you to envision a bedroom fire on the 2nd floor Charlie Delta corner near a 3-person engine company. Remember I went through the numbers earlier with the stairs, the return stairs and all. If you pull up and you're on a 3-person engine company, where are you getting the 4th person from? Somebody just tell me, where are you getting the 4th person from? The bus, okay, to transport an ALS or BLS unit. Where else? Where? Next engine, how many's on that engine? Are they stopping at a hydrant? Okay, are you allowed to come? Can they skip the hydrant and come in for a fast attack off the tank water? Oh, we're making progress, thank God. That's a good thing, thank you. I mean, there's places where it's in the SOG, no matter what, you say there's a working fire, the second engine has to stop at a hydrant at 600 feet. You don't have to, it's the first duty. Okay. We're gonna get to the booster backup tomorrow. Man, I want to get to it right now. I'm going to tell you right now, if every suburban county fire department, I'm talking about LA City, I'm talking about downtown Denver, well, fire departments where we're rolling out of the firehouse with 1 apparatus or 2 apparatuses with less than 4 people on a private dwelling, the booster backup is what's going to save lives and it's going to save property. A positive. We have civilians, hundreds, if not thousands, of civilians that died while the second engine company was sitting on a hydrant and the fire could have been extinguished with tank water. Because we got so consumed with catching a hydrant, we forgot our priorities were primary search and fast water and fire. And with fire growth of today, we can't have an occupied or possibly occupied private dwelling with a couple of rooms of fire and you're rolling in with 500, 750, 1,000 gallons of water and you only have 3 of them. You can't attack the fire and search at the same time. You don't need that hydrant, you need an engine. I gotta stop right there. I won't be doing tomorrow's lecture today. Oh, by the way, anybody that didn't come today, if you know somebody, bring somebody tomorrow. They don't, it's free. They hosted it. So maybe tomorrow, get somebody to come join it. Tomorrow's where we'll really talk about the booster backup operation. But today's fires are a 4-person engine company. You're going to get them from the bus. You're going to get them from a second new engine. You might, anybody in your cross staff, like a ladder truck, like a 2-person ladder company or 1 person, it might be the ladder truck. They position it where it needs to be, and now they're going to be that person at the front door. In my department, we mostly ride 4, but we have 4 engine companies that ride with 3. You know who the 4th person could be if I'm working? Me. If I get there first, or I'm behind the first engine company, it's 3 people, and it's a fast attack, I'll be outside. I'm not going in. I'll be outside, and I'll get back a little bit farther than the average firefighter, the door firefighter, because I want to be able to do what? See the bill a little more. And I'll just be feeding that hose while they're doing a fast attack. And as soon as the second rig gets to the ladder company, somebody going to relieve me? Yeah, they're relieving me on the back up 10 feet to see it. But I'm not, me standing across the street and letting an officer and a nozzle try to play tug of war, is me being out in the street going to make that any safer than if I'm up there feeding hose so they can push in like quicker and get water on fire? No. Me being across the street is more dangerous. There's a higher probability of a flash over because the door's open, we got the smoke rolling out, we got the oxygen coming in. So just thinking about that is one thing I want you to go back, that don't make staffing an excuse. that the line you need is the line you need. Where the nozzle needs to go, the nozzle needs to go. So you have to create staffing through prioritization by understanding it's more important than filling all those other boxes. Looks does not put out fires. Automatics and interior firefighting, I think I hit that one pretty good. So anybody that's using an automatic, I really encourage you to get a hold of a flow meter or pitot gauge and do a flow test on what's going on. We are creatures of habit. Our culture is hard to change. This is a picture of Escambia County back in the early 90s with an automatic nozzle on a 60-degree fog. Was that pretty common nationwide? We talked about it the first thing this morning. It's going to make that orange stuff go away. But when they relocate that nozzle to the next window or whatever, what's going to come right back out that window in about 2 minutes? A bunch of fire. We've got to be applying at 2.5 gallons a second, 150 gallons a minute. That silver bullet, hitting it, knocking it out. We've got to break our old habits of what we're doing. Extinguishing fires in houses. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow's fire attack. Bigger is not always better. And I'm going to talk about the big three. So this morning I was talking about 150 is the answer. We want a certain amount of water, but we want to be able to get that water where we need it. And I want to talk about, Andy Fredericks this morning. I talked about him and his speech, and he was ahead of his time, man. He really was. Who in here has heard of Andy Fredericks before? If you haven't, look him up. If you haven't listened to his keynote address, go to YouTube and just put in Andy Fredericks FDIC speech. Probably the best, if not one of the best keynote addresses ever in history. I was sitting on the front row at FDIC in whatever year it was, 1999. I could have reached up and touched him. And when he did that, this is before 9/11, and I told you this morning what he said. One of the basic phrase he said was, a nozzle is to a firefighter what a rifle is to a soldier, and in the war, the soldier will win the war with the rifle. Now, that was powerful to me sitting on the front row. But not as powerful as it was after 9/11. After 9/11, when SEAL Team 6 went in with 2 helicopters, and they landed, and they went in that cinder block house where that scumbag was hiding behind his multiple wives, and they extracted him, killed him, and took him out to sea. And then I read the story about they had the exact required structure, replica built in Carolina so they could drill over and over and over again. And I thought about that building where they trained. It's just like you and I having a drill tower and saying, you know what, we're going to go to a kitchen fire sometime in the future and practicing on our drill tower and simulating a kitchen fire and positioning all the rigs and stretching the line on the second line, the hook to pull the ceiling for extension, searching the floor above. And then I read the stories about they had a second helicopter. Why did they need a second helicopter? Because they really didn't need, they didn't have that many people. Why did they need a second helicopter? In case one went down, right? What happened? One went down, it's kind of like a second line or a backup line, right? And so they took that second helicopter. And when they went in there to go after that scumbag, did they carry 50 cows? Or did they go in there with handguns that were powerful enough to kill the enemy, but was mobile enough that they could navigate through there to find him hiding out, right? And in the end, I thought, man, if you don't know much about me, I idolized Andy Fredericks. And I idolized him when he was alive. I used to take every class and sat on the front row, read every article, back to his first articles in the 90s. He changed my life, well, in the 90s to how I thought about smooth wars and fighting fire. And it wasn't until I got the story about what he did, and I broke down crying, and I thought, man, Andy Fredericks was a genius. A person in the fire service standing on the big stage against all odds, talking about a smoothbore nozzle. Don't worry about that nozzle, kid. We don't do fires anymore. That's the title of the keynote. He talked about water application and not fancy stuff and not all this glamour stuff, but just a nozzle. And he walked in there and he had that nozzle with him on stage at FDIC, and he talked about water delivery. He talked about the numbers of the fact that places that didn't go to fires are going to fires now because those places never even had neighborhoods that had fires. And places that used to go to fires are burned out and renewed. They're not going to fires. He talked about a soldier and the rifle is what's going to win the war. And to think that in post 9/11, with the technology, with the aircraft, with the radar, with the abilities to engage from a distance, with missiles, bombs, and airplanes, our government, our military, our SEAL team went in They didn't drop a bomb from a B-52. They didn't come in with F-16s. They flew in under the darkness of night on a helicopter. And it was worth the risk for them to land that helicopter in the most hostile place you could ever imagine. Get off that helicopter, go into a building where everybody in there would give their life to kill an American soldier, an American SEAL, to make sure that the final one was cleared, to make sure they had the target that we wanted, the target that we had to have, and extract it. I tell you, when I read his story, man, I wrote down thinking about him, me being on the front row and listening to him, because he sent a message before them scumbags murdered him that in 2030 and in 2040, we will still be a blue-collar job, down and dirty, brass coupling, brass nozzles, as he called it, and our job is going to still be to put on an air pack, to put on a mask, with all the technology, and to push in to do what? To get out the last room of fire, search that closet where Mr. and Mrs. Smith might have been hiding out with some clothes underneath it because they have a solid core door. And we told them to close the door. You and I, Fire Prevention Week, we told them to close the door. That's the message. Is that not the message? Close the door. So we're going to tell them to close the door, and they're in their house with the door closed in their closet or the master bath. The only chance of that door being shit is if you and I do what when we get there and have the house on fire. Put it out and go get it. That message means nothing, folks. It means nothing. To tell somebody to close the door and then you're going to pull up and just shoot water and say, well, it's fully involved. We don't know it's fully involved until we do it 360. My people 3 years ago, under my command, went in the only window that didn't have fire blowing out, and the only window and brought 4 kids out. They didn't make it, but we gave them a chance. We could sleep knowing that the only room wasn't on fire, we cleared. And so Andy's message 20 years ago is still just as powerful today, that we have to be aggressive. We have to understand that our attack package has got to be mobile. We just got 314 G1 air packs delivered to us. And the other day at the firehouse, man, I was like a kid in a candy store with a movable lumbar and a mask, and it Bluetooths up to our radio, and it's actually pretty clear. And now I can talk, and somebody can hear me, or I'm dreaming again. I'll be outside, I can hear them talking while they're doing it. You know what? I was in there doing it, Stevie, right? I was in a dream world there for a second. I was getting so excited talking about Andy that I was thinking I was actually a real fireman for a second. Golly. Oh, back to reality. When I'm outside, I'll understand them. But I do have an air pack assigned to me. And I put it on, and I thought that we really are. I bet this morning, we're a better fire department today than yesterday. From our radio communications to our air packs. Well, we're still buying air packs. And we're still breathing air to get in there and do what we need to do to be aggressive. But bigger's not always better. And sometimes we need something a little smaller so we can be a little faster to get water on fire faster. And, you know, whether it's a water can, a head of the hose line, I always say a can that back up a hose line backs up a can, and if you can jump on it, you jump on it. We need all 3 for a good interior attack line. We need 3 lines at most working house fires. It's not transitional, it's positional. And what I mean by that is a transitional attack is when we have a large amount of fire, we're wanting to hit it hard so we're able to position ourselves on the interior where property and lives can most likely be saved. So I don't call it transitional, I call it positional. We're positioning ourselves originally to hit it as hard as we can so we can move ourselves into an interior forward position. 2 inside and 1 outside. I'm talking about attack lines. I'm seeing more and more at the fires I'm going to, and it's not that it makes me a better person. I'm more apt to go to a working fire than not go to a fire when I go to work. I had 2 fires the day before yesterday when I was at work. Because I work in a very depressed place, from drug fires to arson fires to accidental fires, from poor housekeeping. And I'm telling you, the more fires that I go to in the last 10 years, the more I'm seeing us putting 3 hose lines on the ground. Now, do we use all 3? Not always. But 1 line pushes in, puts out the fire. If it's in a neighborhood where we have hoarding conditions, or we have a lot of common add-ons, my second line a lot of times not the backup line. It goes down the Bravo or Delta side to the rear, especially if the fire's in the rear. And that line's going to the rear, so if the line going to the front door is held up because it's a chopped up floor plan with single room occupancies or locks or hoarding conditions, and that second line, not the backup line, goes down the B or D side, it's in the backyard, and they get on the radio and say, Engine 11 command chief, second line in the rear, standing fast. What do they tell me? They're in the backyard ready, but they're not going to squirt water through any windows with fire going out until what? I give authorization. Engine 16's pushing through the front door, and I'm out in the street, you know, where I can actually see the football field, and I see the hoses not moving. And the smoke's getting thicker from the soffits, smoke's getting thicker from the front door. The rear's calling on the radio, and I gotta take half of what they say is true. Half the shit's them just want to be able to steal the fire from 16. But Engine 11 command, we're still standing fast in the back. It ain't looking good. She's out 3 windows. You know, they're gotta take about half what they say is truthful, right? And then next thing on the radio here is Engine 16 command chief, tell them to hold up. Just give us 1 more minute. We got it, chief. We got it. That's what they're saying on the radio. And then I wait, and I don't see those. Command to 16, you got 30 seconds, and this fire's gonna be Engine 11's, right? You know what I mean? And sometimes that kind of radio traffic does go on, I'm not kidding with you. But the reality is that line's there. Is it backing up that line going through the front door even though it's not backing it up? Guaranteed it is. Because that line can't make the push. They're inside though where I want that first line. They're between where the fire is and where it wants to go from the interior standpoint. Where it really wants to go is out the back windows because that's where the oxygen is. But they're holding back to keep that thing from a poor position in any survivable space, and they're trying to create survivable space. But if they're being held up, if I get on the radio and I told Engine 11, I'm going to go to command, Engine 11, you can hit it from the rear, but remember, put it off the ceiling. And what am I reminding them to do? That they don't want a horizontal plane because it can come through the bottom and do what? The Engine 16 come through the front door. Hit them in the mask or face. So when they put it through the window, it's going to be at a pretty high angle to where, for some crazy reason, 16 had ran into the room of fire and didn't put it out, that water still wouldn't hit. They're going to bounce it off the ceiling to almost create an overabundant sprinkler system, knocking it down. That's the first 2 lines. The third line is going to be that line in the front yard that may or may not be charged, that's backing up the line going to the front door, it's backing up the line going to the rear. If there's an explosion, we miscalculated a basement, and they fall into the floor, and that line in the rear's not in position, it's already charged. It's going to take a while to bring it back around front. It's right there to go right in the front door to do what? You can put water in the basement as we do a Mayday response or a rip drill. So 2 in and 1 out. And here's one thing I'd like to tell you, and most of you, are not going to be able to do this until you're a chief. But when I go to fires, when I go to a box alarm dispatch assignment, which could be a sparking out there or a smell of smoke, almost all the time, exception would be when it's like real cold. When it gets down like 42 degrees, it might not exist. But I had to wait for it. I know, just kidding. But something crazy. It's pouring down rain or whatever. It's pouring down rain, or like the Super Bowl's on, and I don't want to be the most hated chief in the fire department, right? But most of the time, we get dispatched to a box alarm. It could be a smell of smoke, it could be a sparking outlet, whatever. I almost will never, ever cancel anybody on a box alarm. I let every single company on the assignment come to that address. First, let everybody come to the address does a couple of things. One, everybody now came to that address in that neighborhood. So if that outlet or that smell of smoke was not located at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 2 o'clock in the morning that night, there's a fire, the 2 rigs that I let come that I could have canceled, are they going to be more likely to be able to get that call a little quicker than I have to look it up because within that shift they've been there? Guaranteed. Letting everybody come, like the 3rd due rig in our department. We call it 3rd due for supply, which I'll cover more. The 3rd due rig is who's supposed to find a hydrant. If I let the whole box alarm come, is the 3rd due rig down there to truly locate the hydrant that's on their MDT? And they're going to probably stop and get out, pull all the caps off and check it. The first due hydrant company's going to come, they're going to position based on how many engine companies got there first. So now, at that address, they know if they're going to be behind the first arriving engine or there might be 3 engines that beat them up. If they know 3 engines beat them, what does that mean the 3 engines have to do? Have the discipline of leaving a spot for the ladder. So there's a lot of things that we are not tapping into because you, us, the fire service, continue to pass on a pathetic cultural habit that we want to downplay Mrs. Smith's call. Unless shit's blowing out 5 windows, we look at it as a Mickey Mouse incident. And we're guilty as company officers, we're guilty as chiefs. I get step-up officers will try to do it. And they think that they're doing everybody else a favor, especially at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? Because they're so worried everybody's been running these med calls. We actually go to a fire call now, and they're dying to let everybody be available for the next medical call. Like I tell my folks, tie everybody up. Maybe unless we get some more units on the road so we can't help them right now, right? And I call it stamping time too, because it stamps time on an actual fire incident. So next year when a city manager tells the chief, I want your fire ground operation time for 2019, 2018, 2017, and 2016. If all of you listen to what I'm talking about right now, in 2020, every call you hold a box and you stamp time, 2020 would be at your highest fire activity time probably for the last decade. So in 2021, the city manager's like, shit, y'all are going to more fires. Oh yeah, Mr. Bill, yes, we're going to a lot more fires. And you guys are going to see a lot more. Yeah, it's catching up to us, the low staffing. I mean, if you give us that fourth person back, and, we had to hold those 2 extra companies and call a special assignment of a 1-and-1. You see where I'm going with this? It's how the FDNYs maintain their staffing for 50 years. Dead serious. So a lot of stuff that their culture does to show, and is it what's right for the citizens? Guaranteed, because they're doing what's right for those little calls. So when the big call happens, what do they have? Plenty of people to get the thing done for those little calls. Because if we relied on the politicians, we wouldn't have enough people, because they will establish just what? For the everyday gas leak, the everyday med call, if you will. So, a typical smell of smoke, I'll give you one. 2-story apartment. Smell of smoke in apartment 211, I'm first on scene. Battalion 2 is standing on scene, 2-story wood frame garden apartment established in Blue Angel Command. Oh, did I tell you we're going to Blue Angels? I just want to make sure. We actually have a road that's real long called Blue Angel Parkway. Blue Angel Command. First engine will be stretching. As soon as I say that, even though it's a smell of smoke, the engine company coming in, all of a sudden I'm giving them a chance to make sure that they're buckled and locked and loaded, because I'm not playing around. We're going to do this for real. So then they pull off, they get off the rig, they're going to stretch. So now they got to figure out, is it a well-hole stretch? They're going to go to the railing. So we're responding in. Now the company officer, I'm giving them the ability in an apartment complex that most likely wouldn't let them just come train us. Since they call us for a smell of smoke, is it our building? Can we do what we want to do? Engine comes in. They'll do a stretch. Most of the time they're going to do something they haven't done in the last smell of smoke. They'll go up, they'll drop the 6-foot hook over, grab the nozzle, they'll pull it up, they'll bring the dust back. Ladder company will come in, they'll ladder the roof, they'll get over apartment 211, right? Make sure there's maybe not a fire like in the exhaust pipe, so they'll ladder. Another engine company will pull, squeeze in past, they do what's called curbside with supplies or rigs can get by. They'll position, reverse out, sit on the plug, and they'll start hooking up. The last company, if by the time the last company gets there, they basically tell me they can't find us, and we're pretty sure that, we don't have a working fire, I'll assign them to confirm an operational smoke detector. Every rig in our county carries a bag with a cordless drill and smoke detectors. We can't leave an address in our job without signifying on the radio that we check for an operational smoke detector, and if there's not one, we offer to install one and have them sign a sheet. Why? It's what you do when you have 21 civilian fire fatalities in 18 months. It's what you do when you have an average of about 8 to 10 civilian fire fatalities a year. When your fire fatality rate is higher than the city of Miami and Miami-Dade per capita, you do that. I said per capita. They can have more than us, but they have like 2 million people or whatever. I tell you that because we're not proud of it. But that drives a culture of what? Proactive fire prevention. We don't leave an address without an operational smoke detector. And our companies, we want them to get in. I'll get on the radio. Command all companies. Once all hoses hooked up, I want a full walkthrough. What I want them to do is walk through that garden apartment to the courtyard. I want them to go to the top of the stairs where that scuttle hatch is between wing A and wing B. Start to finish on that smell of smoke. I would feel that 90% of the fire service on that smell of smoke, one company would have got there and said, it's nothing, cancel everybody. Would you agree with that? And they'd spend about 6 minutes there and they would leave. If that night they come to a fire in that same apartment, it's through the roof and somebody dies, are you pretty serious liability now? When they pull it down, they say, well, one engine company said they had it. They spent 6 minutes. How does one engine company, with 3 people, search a 2-story garden apartment, the attic space, the exposures, and confirm they check the HVAC, all computers, all power strips, you know what I mean? Like I go through a whole list of things that can start a fire in a house or an apartment. But if I go there and I hold a whole box alarm assignment, 3 engines, a ladder to rescue, and there's radio transmissions where we stretch the dry line, we got on the roof, and hear me on the radio saying, to the 3rd new company, I want you to check with your thermals. So now I have 3 different people with 3 different thermals do a check. Later that night we have a fire. I'm pretty good defense. Do I have a pretty good defense? Guaranteed, because we stamp time. We didn't rush in and out on checking what we're doing. And on top of that, what did we just turn that into? training a drill for that apartment complex on what to do. So when you go back and get back on duty, man, I really empower, stamp a time in. Maybe don't do it when you have like 4 feet of snow on the ground and it's 5 degrees below zero or whatever it gets to in January. But opposing strings and flanking a fire attack, I was just talking about that. This is the big one for you that have not done a flow test. Most of you are not using automatic, but a lot of you didn't raise your hand about a flow test. You got to do a flow test with a pitot gauge. The big three: desired amount, gallons per second or GPM, desired location or reach of the stream, desired nozzle reaction, and tactical mobility. That's the big one. So one for residential is 150 gallons a minute. We want to be able to flow 150 gallons a minute. We want that stream to be able to reach 50 feet or greater, and we want to try to be in the upper 50s for nozzle reaction, preferably 60 or less. That's an attack line that when I did the gallons per second evaluation test in 1999 and 2000, I put our smallest firefighter on the nozzle and had them advance it to 2.5-story drill tower flowing water. When we were done, we proved that 150 GPM at 50 PSI nozzle pressure was good for everybody in the organization. There's no excuses after that. And that's the model that we were looking for. We found out when we went to 175 or 185 to 50, like a 15/16, or 175 to 75, or 175 to 50, that it was just a little bit over that threshold to where not everybody could truly open that up, take their hand off the nozzle, and work. I mean, I get excited just thinking about it, man. Let just be in a moment for a second. And being able to work that thing and fight fire. My analogy to you is, anybody that's ever bench pressed, and you're trying to see what you can do, and you're like, bam, no big deal. Everybody know the little 2.5-pound plates in the gym? You know what I'm talking about? Whoever's been there where you did it, and they just put those 2 little bitty plates on, and you're like embarrassed. You're like, holy cow, you know what I mean? It's like, you got a couple of 45s on there, not me, but I'm going to look at these big things. But, at the end of the day, they're putting the littlest little things on there, and it was the point of breakover. It was the point of like, that 5 pounds shut you down. It's the same thing in nozzle reaction. When you go from around 58 to 63 pounds nozzle reaction, awesome all day long. You just add 5 more pounds of nozzle reaction. It's a game changer on leaving that nozzle open and being able to advance and flow. There it is, 150. I keep it simple, 50-50. 60-60 is good. 2.5 gallons a second. One firefighter can flow while advancing. And as my buddy Steve Robertson says, pushing like a bulldozer. Bulldozer, it's not fast, but it's going to kill everything and push everything out of the way. You're flowing 150 gallons a minute, that nozzle's open, and you're moving that nozzle. In a residential structure, there's not much that it's not going to put out if the nozzle's open. Now, if you shut it down, things can get ahead of you. If you leave it open, it's going to kill a lot. Here's a good little chart my buddy Dennis McGear did, and you look at 1 3/4 top left, 1 3/4, 7/8 nozzle. At 40 PSI, you get 144 GPM at 48 pounds nozzle reaction. At 50 PSI, you get about 161 gallons a minute, 60 pounds nozzle reaction. What we do in Escambia County is we flow test and set our pressures for all our rigs to not get 144, not get 161, but get 150, and we're up in that upper 50 range. You with me on that? And that's what we like to do. We don't split hairs. I mean, if you went to every one of our fires, we probably never hit the exact mark. We just, in training, we try to get there, and then on the fire ground, we're not splitting hairs. And at 60 PSI, over pumping, I get 176 at 72 pounds nozzle reaction. So for anybody that asks me why I'm a huge fan, anybody in here use the 7/8 springboard? Anybody use the 150 at 50, regardless of rank? We put out 150 GPM at 50 pounds nozzle reaction. Nobody? What do you use? Tell me what you use. You do. What do you use? What nozzle? Just, Automatic. You suck. What do you use? Elkhart? Chief XD? Well, what's the tip? Is it 150, 165, 180, 150 at 50? I mean, that's what I like. That'd be great. Anybody else in here use anything else? 50s, 60s? 50s, 60s, is that what you use at fires? And here's the deal, fire departments can't, most people got the 15s, 16s because whoever pushed for them, and I feel sorry for them because they meant well, there's nothing wrong with it. But the 15s, 60s is what New York City uses. And that's why they got it. At the end of the day, as much as I like New York, the 15s, 16s was the most common tip for inch and three-quarter lines outside of San Francisco. It was. And it is an awesome tip. The difference between New York and us is what do we not have on the first new engine? 6 people. So I want to talk about this one because some people want to know my thought process. Is if you drop down to a 15/16, under pumping it, you're 165 55. At 185, you're 69. At 185, 69, I don't care who you are, even you open by yourself, you're not leaving it open, pushing it into a 2-story house. You're going to have to reset it each corner way type of deal. It's that big of a deal if you're pumping it at that. We do a lot of pitot testing. And then if you over pump it, it goes to 202 at 83. So if somebody over pumps it by accident, can it be easy to over pump by 10 pounds with everything going on the fire ground? So now if you over pump it, you jump to 83 pounds nozzle reaction. When our tests in the late 90s, we found out that we had to do what? We had to standardize for the lowest common denominator. Does that sound familiar? Right? And so we went with the 7/8 because the 7/8 can we under and over pump and still be in an okay range? If you over pump a 15/16, you're in a range of what? Like even you, if you love the job, it's not real comfortable to try to dance forward when it's being over pumped as hill. The other thing is depending on your brand of hose, most hose when you under pump a 15/16 by even 10 pounds, what is very, very prominent? Kinking is out of control. So what we found out is literally not even changing the bulb out. When we changed it, we did a lot of testing 20 years ago because it's a county fire department, 23 stations, and a fire chief put it on my shoulders. He said, whatever we buy, don't be coming back to me in 5 years. We're not changing this stuff out. So we didn't just jump the gun. We went and did some serious research. And when we would do these scenarios, not in the parking lot, which is where a lot of flow tests are done, in acquired structures where we truly had furniture, we had smoke machines going, we found that when we dropped from the 15/16 to the 7/8, it almost made the smoothbore a selecto-galvanic nozzle. What I mean by that is you could under pump 10, you could over pump 10, and you were still in a range of an effective strength, which was my last slide, with an effective nozzle reaction where kinks weren't going to kill you because it created enough pack pressure that it would pop the kink out. You with me on that? It was not like grandma's green garden hose. If I kept going for another hour, you would all want to switch from 15/16 to 7/8, and the chief would be pissed off because you'd have to show them and they would agree with it. So I'll just leave it right there. And I tell you that just in a seriousness, you would be amazed how many people in the last year or two have sent me emails and commented they heard my podcast and they went back and tested the entire, even big departments went and changed out all their tips to 7/8. And at the end of the day, I don't make a penny off of nozzle sales. God's honest truth. As much as I'm friends with Elkhart, I don't sell nozzles. I have nothing to do with them. And I don't care if it's Elkhart or TFT. So why do you think I care to tell you the difference between the 7/8 and 15/16? Why do you think it's important enough for me to tell you that? Because I went through a couple of fires where we had 15/16 tips, and we didn't do a very good job. Part of it was our fault. We didn't do a very good job flaking out the hose. Pump operator got excited, wasn't really pumping it just perfect, and what do you think happened to the crew inside of the attack? It went limp. I mean, it dropped everything. And I've had a lot of fire departments that we were just talking about it on lunch break that fought for smoothbores for years and years, and they pushed the fire chief, and they pushed the deputy chief, and they pushed it. And finally, the fire chief and the deputy chief said, I give up. I'll let you buy it. What do you want? And they said, oh man, we want the 15/16s. That's what everybody's got. They got the 15/16s. But the only testing they ever did was in a parking lot. Parking lots don't catch on fire. And it worked good in the parking lot. They didn't really truly evaluate with their brand of hose, because some departments have different brands of hose throughout the city. They put it on their rigs, not the first day, a month later, some places 6 months later, you had a fire at 2 o'clock in the morning. And all the naysayers that didn't want it, are mad at John or Bill or whoever got this on a rig. It goes bad. Next thing you know, literally, this has happened nationwide. The fire chief is sending out an memo, and this was coming off the rigs and going in a box back to the training division. Smoothbores. And it's not the smoothbore's fault. It was a fact they're not pairing the right tip with the right hose. 15/16 is awesome as long as it's on the right hose. You know what I mean? If you put it like with the hose that FDNY uses. But if you put a 15/16 on the wrong hose, like a cheap, I'm going to just call it Echo 10, it's not going to work. There are places I've been that they can't use a 150 at 50. They've got to use a 150 at 75. Why do they have to have a 150 at 75 instead of 150 at 50? It's cheap hose. They get a little more pressure to keep that hose from kicking too bad. At the end of the day, as much as I love the 150/50, I'm like, you know what, your only solution, unless you're with about 2,000 feet of new hose, is you're gonna have to bump up your nozzle pressure. You're gonna eat up, you're gonna have a little more nozzle reaction, but that's what you're gonna have to do. So I'm basically telling you what I talked about this morning, that as much as I love the 7/8, as much as I love the 150/50, can you just go out and buy those nozzles that work for you? No, you've gotta test it with your hose to find out what you're staffing and doing drill towers and all that. Just don't go out in the parking lot. Too many people have not done the legwork, they just copy what somebody else has done, and then it doesn't apply apples to apples for them. Dropping down to the 2.5. On the 2.5, the most common tip is the 1.1/8. If you pump it when it's designed, I just like to call it 265. It's easier instead of saying 266. But 265 at 99 pounds nozzle reaction. If you under pump it, it's 238 at 79. Or the over pump it is 291 at 119. Now, when we're pumping a 2.5 and we're using stream reach, when we're pumping a 2.5 and we're using stream reach. Now, remember, let's go back to before lunch. Stream reach means that the hose line is not going to do what? It's not going to do what? It's not going to move. Did somebody say it? It's not going to move, right? So stream reach means we're going to stretch it, charge it, and flow it from a stationary position. When we're going to use a 2.5 for stream reach, those nozzle reaction numbers up there are not as significant as they are when we're going to do nozzle reach. You with me on that? Like 1.75. Predominantly, almost all the time, 1.75 is going to be a hose line and a nozzle package that's designed to do what? With water in it, we drag it around. Do you agree with that? Inside a house, outside a house? So nozzle reaction is a very, very high priority in 1.75 hose with a nozzle package. When you get to a 2.5, more times than not, the exception will be that school fire. The exception will be a high-rise fire. But most of the time, you and I in suburban America, would you not agree most of the time the 2.5 is going to be flowed from a stationary condition? You shut it down, you'll drag it, you'll reposition, you'll open it up. So nozzle reaction, I'm not saying it's not important, those numbers are just not as important as they are on an 1.75. And with that said, that's why the new 1.3/16 is becoming popular, because it is a tip that flows the flow of the 1.1/8, and it flows the flow of the 1.25. So if you look second to the bottom, 1.3/16, when we under pump that at 40 psi, we're getting 265 with 89 pounds nozzle reaction. We pump it at 50, we're getting, I just like to call it 300. 300 gallons a minute at 111, or we over pump it, we get 325, which is exactly what we're getting on a 2.5. Now, the problem with the 2.5, and it can be done, I have like a picture you'll see tomorrow, but a 2.5 with 1.25 inches, which is the biggest tip you can use on a 2.5, is the Chicago tip. When you over pump it, you're getting 260 at 147 pounds nozzle reaction. That's the only one. The 1.25 when we over pump it can become very, very dangerous. You're at let's just call it 150 pounds nozzle reaction. At any given time, if I'm on that 2.5 with an 1.25 tip and I'm over pumping, at any given time I miscalculate, go too low, you know what I mean, with a nozzle, could it seriously injure or kill somebody? Guaranteed. So it's that's that one tip where you're starting to board on the danger, kind of like I talked about on the 15/16 over pumping it. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have it, doesn't mean you shouldn't get it, you should just be aware of it. The big thing for me, if we're using an 1.25 tip, where we're really knocking a commercial fire from the exterior, and we're going to use an 1.25 tip, we're going to over pump it, I want the person on the nozzle to be highly experienced, disciplined, and not too excited, and I want the pump operator standing fast at the pump handle at any given time, ready to do what? Kill it, shut it down. And those are safety things that we build in to an operation like that. And I have been at the fire, even as a chief on the radio, said the pump operator shall be ready to immediately shut it down if we're doing what I call just a rapid blitz, using a hand line instead of where we would normally be using like a ram, a blitz fire, or something like that. So just some numbers, and you can find these on the website. Another good article for anybody, a couple of you that automatic, the world of automatics over here. Man, it doesn't seem like I've been talking now. Something else for you ones that are writing down. Go to countyfiretechnics.com, and the top right, and just put in nozzle trims. That's all you gotta do. Put in nozzle trims. These charts are in that article. Dennis McGeer wrote it, I don't even know what it's been now, 7, 8 years ago, and nobody would print it. I was the one that printed it. I put it on my website first. And there's another one called hose strings. Anybody in here that is into evaluating your hose and nozzles, anybody that's in here to maximizing the water from your hose and nozzle package, regardless of your rank, or you're trying to sales pitch it to your organization, Dennis McGeer's 2 articles are probably the best articles out there. I mean, it takes everything from Andy Frederick's work to a bunch of other people in the fire service. Dennis wrote the article, but he got opinions from a lot of people from around the country. Myself, Dennis and I went to Scotland back in 2009, spent 7 days on a vacation, him and myself, and the guys from Boise, you know, Ted Corporani, Mr. McCall, Ted Corporani, Jay Camella out of Oakland that wrote the article after a line of duty death on hose and nozzle selection. A group of us spent 7 days drinking scotch and talking fire shit for 20 hours a day and slept for 4, so it never got dark there. And so this article is an article of a lot of minds from different levels of staffing, big city, San Francisco to suburban, and I think they're probably the 2 best articles that you could educate yourself on evaluating the hose and nozzle package so you're not wasting your city taxpayers' money. And I tell you that because I travel a lot, and it really breaks my heart when I go to a place and they just bought, you know, depending whatever, like Idaho Falls, your 5 stations. So you have at least 5 engines in a reserve, 2 reserve rigs. So you got 7 engine companies, and they just bought whatever, man. They just bought like 7,000 feet of inch and 3/4, 7,000 feet of 2.5. And at the end of the day, they never really evaluated for their nozzles. Then they didn't make sure that, hey, this hose has been good. The inner liner will actually delaminate like 6 months into the operation. So I tell you that because I don't want you wasting the money. And I'm not here to tell you what kind of hose to buy. You got to figure out that on your own. You know, I think they all kind of suck right now, to be honest with you. They're all trying to create a profit margin to make too much money. They got to make money, but you know, it needs to be a quality product. When I got on the job, our supply hose, we ran double A's and 2.5. It was truly brass couplings. And every time we tested the hose at 250 for 5 minutes, none of it failed. 255 minutes, none of it failed. I'll never forget. I've been in Pensacola a few years. Captain Wayne Merle Clark was his name. Rest in peace, Captain Clark. Died just a few years ago. He got hired in 1963. His first captain got hired in the 30s. We're out there testing hose at a city drill tower. I'll never forget him telling us, all right, boys, I'm going inside Station 4. What, Cap? We're testing hose. Yep, just going to Station 4. I'll come get you when I need you to come back out here. He sent us all in the station. And when we came out, the hose, it was whatever it was, umpteen years old, brass couplings, had water shooting out of it everywhere. We know what he did. What did he do? What did he do? He had to cut it. Why did he cut it? Was he doing us a favor? The hose was like 30 years old. Literally brass couplings. I'm not exaggerating. I know I'm a young man. Brass couplings. Old triple jacket hose. Man, like it hurt your hands. The chief didn't tell you to wear gloves. You wanted to wear gloves when you were laying after you did a double lay into a Queen Anne Victorian house fire, right? He realized, he kept giving it year after year, and he realized that hose was never going to wear out. You buy a hose today, 2.5 inch, 3 inch, inch and 3/4, and you drill with it just a little bit. You go to a couple of fires with it. In 5 years, what are you going to have on hose testing day? What's going to happen? At least some of them. It's going to fail. And that's why I feel fortunate. I've been in the fire service long enough to realize not everything is getting better. I lied to you earlier. Some stuff's not getting better. The first few years, never. No hose in a Pensacola fire department never failed. 2.5 inch and 3/4. We didn't even have 5 inches. No hose failed. Nothing. Now in Escambia County, every time we do hose testing, and our hose is pretty new, hose is getting tagged and going to the warehouse, and some of them, I'm not even sure if they've ever been to a fire. It's that cheap. And so that's why it's important that we invest in understanding hose today more than ever before, because it doesn't matter how good the nozzle is if you're buying cheap hose. And when your department goes out for bid, I'll just use an example. Key Hose is a manufacturer that's 2 hours from me, Dothan, Alabama. Key Hose has what's called like Echo 10. Echo 10 is like the green grandma's garden hose. Everybody know what I mean by green grandma's garden hose? The one that like literally when you flow water through it, you can't even get the kinks out of it no matter what you do, and you can't even put your thumb over, nothing's coming out the end of it, right? And then Key Hose has what's called FDNY spec, or Key Combat. And that's some pretty good stuff. What's the difference? They sell both. What's the difference between Echo 10 and Key Combat? The price. So when a fire department goes out for bid, and they're buying 7,000 feet, and the bean counter, the day walker, gets in the bid, and they're down at City Hall making the, what? I got a deal, right? All they care about is money. That's all they care about. And they buy it. And now you put it on your rig, and you don't go to a lot of fires. It flows okay when you just kind of loaded it. And now next thing you know, you've had it 2 or 3 years, and you go to that fire, and you're pushing down a hallway, and you have to make 3 turns. A cushion's still burning, it falls over, and you got a burn through. You're like, I've been on the job 24 years, I've never had a busted line. We're seeing more burn throughs and more busted lines coast to coast than we've ever seen all through the 50, 60, 70, through the war years. Burn throughs in suburban America of lines busting, more prevalent today than it was in the war years of the South Bronx and South Side of Chicago. Because back then, what was it? The hose had some substantial to it. It had some protection to it. Whose fault is it that we have this problem? Oh, because we kept asking for hose to be what? Lighter and cheaper. You can't have lighter and cheaper. Don't work like that. You can't have lighter and cheaper. There's got to be a happy medium. So a hose manufacturer don't want to walk up to me and say, hey, man, this 50-foot section only weighs 14 pounds. I'm like, well, that shit's got to suck. It needs to at least weigh 21 pounds or whatever. There's got to be some weight to it for it to have some amount of thread protection, if you will, to just dumb it down in simplification. So you got to look at that and think about what you're doing. Now, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to take another break. Guess what all hose manufacturers have? Green garden hose. Green grandma. Am I making you laugh? Tell me it's okay. Okay. I will tell you this. I was telling somebody at break. And man, is there anybody that works on staff on Baytown? Because I would say that you are okay. So it's the truth. So when I'm going to tell you a story, then I'll tell you a break. I was at 239 North Spring Street, the 2-story firehouse, 17 on me. It was my dream firehouse I don't want to work out as a young kid in Pensacola. I'll never forget, it was Friday at 5 o'clock. Friday at 5 o'clock. Captain Wayne Clark was the guy too. Every day he had coffee at 3 o'clock, and he sat at the coffee table till dinner time. So as a young kid who was able with a job, where did I make sure I was every day at 3 o'clock? At the coffee table, Captain Clark. Just an awesome guy, man. I went to his funeral and everything. He did, I don't know, like almost 40 years on the job. But I'll never forget, Captain Clark was one of those quiet, humble, never had anything negative to say, so when he spoke, it was more powerful. Never bashed the chief's office or anything like that. I'll never forget, he was sitting upstairs at Spring Street. It was all glass overlooking Spring Street in downtown Pensacola. Had the old blinds, the old like Venetian generic blinds that you could bend for 30 years. And everybody's leaving at 5 o'clock on Friday. And we're drinking a cup of coffee, old coffee maker, man, like the restaurant, 4 buns on the bottom, 2 on the top. Like, I think they had like 7 pots of coffee going at one time on the heaters. And he leans over, puts down the blinds. He says, us 168, them 40. We think it's more important. And what he meant was they only had to be at work 40 hours a week. We had to be at work 168, 24/7. And he wasn't knocking them, but what he was telling all of us sitting at the table is, you know, at the end of the day, they wear white sheets, they white shirts, they got to go do all this stuff and get everything for us, but we got to be here tonight. We're the ones that really make the rubber meet. And the message was at the time, everybody was complaining about everything. And he was, what you were talking about, Chief, earlier about being positive, he was being positive without being negative. What he was saying was, don't worry about that, because everybody was worried about what they were doing and not doing. And his message was, they're only here Monday through Friday 8 to 5. We're here at nights and weekends, and when the jingle happens, we're the ones that serve as Mrs. Smith and Mr. Smith and do it. And it was one of the most powerful messages I ever got from him. Was a joke, but it was really a leadership lesson. That at the end of the day, value yourself, value what you have to offer. And even though we might not be high ranking, we're the ones that go out there and take care of the car wrecks and medical calls and stretch the hose lines. So remember, don't get wrapped around what they're doing at headquarters. They're only there 40. We're at work 168. Maybe not personally, but the rigs are on duty. Any questions before we go to break? All right, take a break. 10-minute break or so. Come back, and then we'll take it to the finish line. So you're in the office? You're in the office? What department? Okay. I mean, I was assigned the office too. I was in fire inspection. I was in training division for years, so I'm not the only. I've been most of the time I've been on something. I was